Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Karan and today I'm going to show you guys how to use the type tool in Adobe Photoshop. The keyboard shortcut for the type tool is the letter T on your keyboard, or if you want you can go to your toolbar and find it right over here. It's this icon with the letter T on it. By default it should be the horizontal type tool that's selected in your toolbar, but if it's not, just right click on this icon and select your horizontal type tool. Now to create a text layer, there are two ways you can do it. With your type tool selected, you can just click anywhere on your keyboard and you'll have this dummy text that appears, right? It's called lorem ipsum, and lorem ipsum is just placeholder text. It's a bunch of Latin words that make no sense, and it's just used as a placeholder till you put in the text that you want. Now, the second way to create a text layer is again have your type tool selected, and you can just click anywhere on your canvas and just drag your mouse. And as you can see, this dotted box appears. It's a guide to show you how long you want what width and height you want your box to be. And once you have that decided, that box will be filled with lorem ipsum. And the difference between these two options is that, if you've not already noticed, it's that if I select this first layer, which I just did by clicking on it, just clicking anywhere on that, this kind of a text layer, if you keep typing and adding text, it just keeps going on and on and on. There's no limit, right? It doesn't break at any point. But if you go to the text layer on the one with the second option where you've made a box out of it, in that case, the text tries to fit itself into the width and height of your box. So if I increase this width, more text will appear. If I reduce it, more text gets cut off. Similarly, if I increase the height, more text will appear. If I reduce it, the text disappears. I prefer using the second way to create text because it gives you more control over the width and height. It's just a faster way for me, but if you find the first way, you can do the first way as well if you find that easier. Just gonna delete these two text layers by selecting them both in the layers panel and hitting on delete. So I'm gonna make another text layer, and I'm gonna show you how you can manipulate the properties of your text. And you just drag a box, leave it at the height and width you want. And as you can see, a lot of text is being cut off because it's filled. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce the font size. Now there are two ways to reduce the font size. First, you select all your text with Control plus A or Command plus A on if you're using a Mac. And you can go onto the options bar here with your type tool selected. And you can just go to your font section, this 55 points here. That's the size of the font right now. And you can choose anything from the drop down. So if I want to increase it to 60 or if I want to decrease it to 30, then it'll automatically update itself, right? There's another neat trick you can do, which is if you see this icon, the two T's, you can hover your mouse over here, and as you can see, there's a double-sided arrow that forms. What this means is you can just scroll by holding down your mouse button there, by clicking your mouse there, and while it's pressed, if you just drag your mouse right or left, the text will decrease if you scroll your mouse towards the left, and if you scroll it towards the right, the size of the text keeps increasing. As you can see, now it's on 62 points. And you can also change your font type and your font weight from here. So right now my font type is agenda, and I'm just going to keep it the same. And you can change the font weight, and what I mean by the weight is how thick your text appears. So if I go to medium, you can see that the text is quite a lot more thinner right now. And if I go on bold, it becomes more thicker, and black is the thickest option. It's the biggest weight available with this font. And you'll find that different font types have or different font families have different kinds of weights that are available with them. And there's another way you can do that. You can just go to your panels section and edit the font weight and text from there, which is, you can go to your panel section and find this letter A. It's called the characters panel. If you can't find it, you can go to your menu bar, select window and select character from there, and this panel will open up for you. And as you can see, the font family is here, Agenda. That's the name of the font family. The weight is here as well. Right now it's black, just as it was in the options bar. Font size is here as well. There's one more thing I want to point out here, and that's called your leading. So the space between this lines in your text, right? So right now there's 3 lines of text here, and the white space between them, that's your leading. That's called leading. And if you want to edit that, you can go to your characters panel, and this option here, right now it's by default on auto. And what that means is Photoshop is deciding the leading for you based on what it thinks is good enough. But if you think it's not wide enough, or if it's too close, the text is too close, you can increase and decrease the leading as well by clicking on the drop down. And let's say I change it to 24 points, and if you see now, it's all jumbled up, right? That's because there's no line space anymore. But if I go back to auto, Photoshop corrects itself, and you can increase it. I find this to be a little less leading than I want it to be. I want it to have more leading. So I'm just going to click over here like I did with the font, and I'm just going to select that icon and just drag my mouse to the right and increase it till I feel the leading is good enough. And yeah, 80 points seems fine here. And I'm going to select my move tool, keyboard shortcut V, to deselect the text, right? And now you can move around the text layer as well. And one more thing to notice is if you go to your layers panel, this text layer is by default just going to be named whatever text is available in the text layer. So if you want to change that, you just select the text layer and double click on the name, and it'll give you this option with a blue highlight, which means you can now edit the name of the text. So I'll just call it text layer 1, and that's just to organize myself and just give me a better understanding of what that layer is. And one more cool thing you can do with the text is you can add a gradient to it. And the easiest way to do that is by having your text layer selected in your layers panel and going down to this icon here called FX, which is, an effect, and just select that, and from pop-up that appears, you can just click on gradient overlay. And as soon as you do that, you can see that the text is now having a gradient, and by default it will probably be this black and white option. And if you want to change that, what you do is first you select the type of gradient you want. There are a lot of funky colors here, but we'll just stick with normal black to white. And if you want to change the color of that, you go onto the color box here and double click over there, and you'll get this gradient editor option panel. And you can go down to these 2 boxes here and just select on the first one. That's your black option. If you double click on that, now you'll have a color picker panel that will open up where you can choose the color you want. Let's say I go for somewhere like this purplish blue. And now to go towards the lighter side, which is white right now, you just double select that as well, and you can go to whatever color you want. And as you're dragging your color picker around in your color box, and wherever you leave it, you can see how the gradient will look. So right now, because both the colors are dark, you can't tell that there's too much of a gradient. But if I lighten it up, now you can see that there's this kind of a interesting gradient that's been formed. Then you just select on OK, and then you click OK here in the gradient editor as well. And right now my gradient style is a linear style. What that means is it's going from in a singular pattern left to right. And you can change that. There are options. So there's radial gradients, where what that means is the gradient starts from the center of your layer. And another option is your angles, which is basically it'll form it on an angle. Then you have reflected, which is this kind of a reflection state, like a mirror type of effect with your gradients. And diamonds, which is basically a diamond shape gradient. And you can do this with shapes as well. If you don't know how to work with shapes, I have a video on shape layers as well, on the shape tool as well. Please do check that out. For now, I'm just going to keep my gradient as linear. And you can notice under this that there's an option called angle. Right now it's on minus 14 degrees. That's the angle of your linear gradient, at which angle it's appearing. So by default, it's probably going to be 90 for you guys. That's how it's going to be. But because I've already messed around with my gradient layers before, this is why the value was different. And you can just select this arrow, this kind of like a clock option here on your angle option, and just move it around, and you can see that the angles change. And if I leave it at, let's say, 167 degrees, now the gradient is on the opposite side of its direction as it was before. At 0 degrees, this is what it looks like. And another option with your gradients is the scale. So right now it's at 107. Just by default, make it 100%. So that's how your gradient looks like. And because I hit enter on my keyboard, the gradient overlay effect option also disappeared, right? If you want to go back to that and you want to edit it, you can just go to your text layer in your layers panel, and you notice that there's this option called effects and gradient overlay, and you can just double click on the gradient overlay and you'll have that same option appear again, right? And that's how you add a gradient to your text layer. And that's all I have for this video, guys. So this is how you create text in Photoshop. If you found this video to be useful, please do like and subscribe to my channel. If you have any doubts or if you have any requests for a tutorial, please do let me know in the comments below. And thanks for watching. Stay tuned in for my next video.